Welcome to the IRONMAN Insider presented by Maurten. I'm your host, Matt Lieto. Last time we were able to have Julie Dibbins on with us, Coach to the Stars. And if you didn't get a chance to listen to that, I think it was a pretty good chat. So go back and do so. She's got some great insights on how to look into Ironman training and racing from not just a coach's perspective, but a former athlete as well. So again, if you haven't listened to that, go do so. She's awesome. This week, we've got another great guest with a different perspective still on Ironman racing, coming from a very different background than we often see, and also a recent Kona qualifier. So pretty excited to have Paul Felder on with us. Super excited to welcome Paul Felder, UFC fighter, actual professional broadcaster. We can have a discussion on if I qualify as well or not once we get in there. And now an Ironman athlete. How's it going, Paul?
It's good, Matt. Thanks for having me on, dude. Good to talk to you. And yes, I would say you're definitely a professional broadcaster, my friend. So at least from my perspective, I watch you guys all the time. I try to tune into as many races as I possibly can. So big fan on this side.
Awesome. Well, I'm always fishing for compliments. So there you go. First one's done. Thanks for that. Sweet, man. Appreciate you making the time. Sounds like you've been busy. I know you did Ironman Lake Placid a couple of weeks ago, and you said you're just in Abu Dhabi, right?
Yeah. So at the race, had a little downtime, and then right to getting back to work, calling fights, and yeah, we do quite a bit of work over in Abu Dhabi. We're in Saudi Arabia now, so most of the time we're in Vegas, but a lot of times we're all over the world. And Abu Dhabi is usually where some big fights happen. So we had a good fight night this weekend. A couple of 135ers on the main card. It was good, man. Yeah. But as you know, travel like that when you get back, and then try to get back into training. And I'm off to Vegas this weekend and out there for about 6 days calling fights out there. So it's just sometimes I don't even know what time zone to be in.
Dude, and that's crazy too. Like, for me, when I did Ironmans, it's like do the race and then like literally do nothing for like a week or 10 days and still feel like crap getting on a plane to Abu Dhabi. And like, obviously the job isn't easy either, right? Like how's the body feeling?
No. I thought I was starting to feel really good. And then I think this trip really set me back. I just got done doing a swim this morning and then going for what was supposed to just be an hour, mostly easy run. And I felt like my legs were just two garbage cans, to be completely honest with you. So as I try to get back into the running, and maybe I'm sure way more about this than I, just the first full I'd ever done, but yeah, I thought I was like, oh, I should be good. But the running, for some reason, is the thing that is really just dragging behind to get comfortable again. Biking felt good. I'm back biking pretty decently this week, but man, just feel like I got cinder blocks when I'm running still.
Dude, no, I mean that makes sense, and that's pretty normal, especially if you've got more muscle damage, right? And running, that's going to be the hardest thing, and recovering while flying across the globe a couple times is not good for the legs. Not good for the legs. So
no, and sleeping like garbage. Yeah. And not being on a normal eating schedule and eating food that's not what you're used to. It's just like all the things that don't promote recovery is what I've been doing for the last 6 days. So
that's hilarious. Yeah,
it's to be expected.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's sweet, actually. And kind of what I wanted to talk to you about is, to some extent, obviously this is like kind of a small example and a most extreme example after an Ironman. But obviously, I spend a lot of time, if you're looking at or watching our coverage of races, like talking about pros, and often we're talking about the pros and the best in the sport. And we know that they don't have anything else to do when they're not training or racing, right? And you certainly have lots of other things to do. So how do you find time in that? Like, I didn't even think about the travel that you're dealing with, but even just that busy schedule, like how are you balancing training for Ironman and doing a like super high level intense job?
So I really try to pick races that are going to be. I get my schedule first, and then obviously I have to find races, or my bosses and the UFC would kill me if I was trying to change my schedule around what races I wanted to do. So I get my calendar for when I know I'm calling fights. I'll get several months in advance usually, so I can kind of go through the Ironman calendar and be like, okay, what 70.3s do I want to do? Are there some local races that I want to squeeze in? And obviously this year, the main focus was to get ready for Placid. So I did Happy Valley right before it, a few weeks before that, and it all kind of worked out where I had a couple weeks before each of these. Actually, I was in Denver the week before Placid, however. But of all places, the week before an Ironman, I was just doing some easy running, some easy swimming. I figured I did a ton of biking up until I left. So I try to plan it all out according to my travel. And if it's in Vegas, I have a bike out there that I keep out there. I train with Justin Reale when I'm out there all the time, and some other guys from the Everman Jack team. So the only time it's really difficult is places like Abu Dhabi. But obviously I wasn't too worried about that because I just did an Ironman. So for that one, it was kind of like, all right, I'm going to have some beers. I'm going to relax, let myself have as much of a vacation as you can while working for a fight. It's still got to do a bunch of fighter meetings and preparation and things like that. But it's tough. It's tough for things like, for example, and this has kind of been the stressor of my existence right now. So I qualified for Kona in that Placid race. And I'm supposed to be calling fights October 26th in Abu Dhabi. And obviously I took the slot because I was like, I got to try to see what I can do. And I talked to my boss, and they understand how important it is to me, but they also, there's a lot going on. The one guy that can cover me right now might be accepting an actual fight the week after that, so he wouldn't be able to work it. So fingers crossed, everyone, that I even get a chance to go. I can't, it's such a crap situation, but work is first for me, man. I'm an independent contractor. I'm not necessarily on salary, so it's not like I get to just shift things around like that. So I'm like, sucks.
Yeah, that's well. Maybe we can start a hashtag that's like get Felder to and I know you were going to ask. You were going to ask, and I would offer to step in and be
to cover.
The
come on, bro.
I'm busy that weekend.
I'll give you a crash course. I'll give you a crash course on all the things you know. It's really good main event. It's a pay-per-view, so you'd be stepping in on a big night. You'd be stepping in on a big night. But I think you could pull it off.
That's hilarious. That's a dilemma, but we'll be rooting for you, and maybe we can put some pressure on Dana and see what's going on. Make it happen. Yeah. I'm sure
he's like, I don't know. I don't know enough.
Man. So what is that like? What does a weekend of work look like for you? Like, I'm intrigued just because of obviously like the fact that you're able to fit training in as well, but just elite sport, and we all love Ironman and like UFC. It's cool to be able to see what we see on this end,
Yeah, so if it's an international show, we'll probably leave on like a Tuesday, get there on a Wednesday, and that's usually a day to just kind of get our bearings, get into the hotel, and then every Thursday we do like 3 or 4 hours of fighter meetings where we meet with most of the fighters on the card. We sit down with them face to face. We kind of check up on their last fight, how's training camp been going, what's new for them in their personal life. How they're feeling about that particular matchup. We kind of discuss the run of the show, go through the format of how the show is going to break down. If there's anything in particular that we need to know, like we'll get given homework assignments, for example, like let's say there's a featured fight that's on the prelims, but it's a big fight. We'll have to do the keys to victory. So me and one of the other broadcast guys will kind of get each guy, and we'll have to go through and find 3 things that they need to do according to us on, what we think is going to be their success to getting the win. We'll break down different clips and different footage, and we'll kind of go through all that throughout the week. Then obviously the ceremonial weigh-in. So the guys weigh in Friday morning, but then the show for the weigh-in for the fans is later that night. So the guys are hydrated up. They get to go and face off in front of the crowd. Sometimes we'll have to work that. For example, in Abu Dhabi, I had to MC that. So I've only had to do that twice. And that is more nerve-wracking for me than actually calling the fights, because you got to get the crowd all hyped up. You got to be like, oh, fighting out of this corner, blah, 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 and just get crazy energy. So I got to do that this weekend. And then Saturday, depending on what time the show starts, I usually I'll do a workout, usually that morning, and then call the fights that night. And again, if it's in Vegas, like for example, this weekend, I get out there Thursday. I got a 3-hour ride and a swim that I'm doing Friday. I'll do a 90-minute run before the show on Saturday, and then I'm going to go out with one of my training buddies out there, this guy Kyle, who actually does a lot of the videos for Justin. And I'll probably do like an 80-mile ride with him on Sunday.
Right. So that's awesome. So you're able to fit it all in, yeah? And does it take some pressure? Like, is that a good release for you on like a race or when you're calling a fight weekend, to be able to still like just kind of be in your routine and do your thing?
Yeah. And a lot of times if I'm doing something on the trainer, like if I'm in Vegas and I'm just, on the trainer doing a bike ride, I'll pull up fights and I'll just watch fights, or I'll watch the countdown. Like let's say the UFC puts up a promo kind of building up to that particular card. I'll just sit and watch that 40-minute show and kind of think about the fights while I'm just mindlessly, doing an easy ride or something like that. And just for me, having been a fighter and being retired now, if I didn't have something like triathlon, I really feel like I'd be going stir crazy. I think I would not be as happy as a human, honestly. I've always been really, really active. Even from when I was a little kid, I did martial arts. I played sports. I always needed to be doing that kind of stuff and be competitive in some way. And I can accept not fist fighting forever, right? That's a very limited sport for when I could do that. So when I found Tri, I was like, oh man, how did I not know about this sport sooner? I feel like if I had found it when I was young, I think I'd have gotten pretty good if I'd found that when I was, like 15, 16, and like some of these kids nowadays, but I didn't.
That's right.
I found fighting. So.
Yeah, I'm sure it probably helps you to, I've seen that there's, hints or people are trying to like get you out of retirement, right? Does it make it easier, the fact that you've got something else to focus on? You're not tempted to do that?
Yeah. Yes, 100%. 100%. Because even with doing this, there was times, now I'm 40, like I have really written it off. It's done. I'm out of the testing pool. Like there's no way I'm getting back in. You know what I mean? It's a whole 6 months process. You got to be in, you got to pass a certain amount of drug tests, and I'm done. I'm officially done. But for a little while there, even when I was doing races, there was a few moments where maybe I wasn't feeling too good in races, and I was like, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to go back to doing what I do, what I was good at. I was better at fighting. Why am I getting caught up in this stuff? I'm never going to be high level. I should just be a fighter. And like anything, there's just some bad chunks of time where you got to get through them. And once I started feeling better again, I was like, all right, maybe I don't need to go back to fighting. It's and my wife wanted to kill me. My mom wanted to kill me. They're like, what are you talking about? You've been retired for like 2.5 years. You're going to come back and fight these killers that have been nonstop, training and competing. And I was like, well, I was trying to fight another older guy, this guy, Jim Miller. He's the man, but he's my age. He's still fighting. He's got all these records. And he's just a hard-nosed guy from New Jersey. So that was the one fight I was like, I want to fight Jim Miller. If I could fight Jim Miller, I'd come back. And they didn't give me the fight. They gave it to somebody else, and that was it. I was like, okay, if I'm not fighting Jim Miller, I'm not that interested.
Hilarious. No Masters divisions? Yeah. No 40-plus?
Dude, that's the thing. That was the closest I was going to get to a Masters division in fighting was Jim Miller. He was 39, 40 years old at the time, same as me. And he's not like a young lion. We were going to have a good old fashioned dust up, and it didn't work out. And they gave him some other guy that beat the crap out of him instead. So I feel bad.
Well, too bad for Jim. You would have taken it easy on Jim.
Yeah, I would have made it look good for a little while and then finished him in the end.
Yeah, man. So I'm super curious. Like talk to you all day about UFC and kind of how you got into that and more intricacies of that. But to me, the fact that I always love seeing any elite athlete move into a new sport and like see that same like fire in their eyes about it and getting excited about it.
Yeah.
It's pretty clear that you've got that fire in your eyes for triathlon. What was it specifically that like when you said you like found it too late and you didn't know it existed? What like did you like, oh, I'm just gonna go finish and then you got hooked? Like how did you enter into that scene?
So I started during 2020 when we were kind of all shut down. I mean, as you can imagine, MMA gyms were really shut down, just like kind of the pools were for a lot of you guys. Like nobody could swim.
Yeah,
I couldn't do anything. You know what I mean? We obviously have to train in big groups all the time. So I was like, well, what am I going to do? I had just fought in February, right before everything kind of got shut down. So I was kind of in no man's land, and I started running a lot. I was like, okay. There's a trail near my house. There's nobody on the streets. I can just start running. I was starting to gain a lot of weight. And I was like, all right, I'll run. I'll stay fit. And it got boring as hell. I was like, I can't just do this. My feet started hurting. I was just running all the time. So I started kind of looking up workouts and things on YouTube. And long story short, I discovered Lionel Sanders and his YouTube channel. Yeah. When I was looking up different run workouts. And the one run workout that I saw him doing was it's like a tempo workout he did in 106 degrees in Arizona, and him and Talbot filmed it. And I was like, who is this dude? And this stuff is intense. Like, this dude's crushing himself. He's talking numbers and all this stuff. I have no idea what he's talking about, but I'm curious. And I was on like a work trip, and I just had, we were quarantined and doing nothing. So I started watching all his videos. And I was like, oh, just getting curious about, all right, so there's these types of runs. There's this guy's swimming and biking and doing all this. I got a spin bike. I started doing just like my own little workouts in my closet with this old gym spin bike that I had and running.
Yes.
And I was just started putting it all together. And I reached out to Sanders just to tell him, I was like, yo, you're the man, dude. I love this energy that you have on your YouTube channel. Right. And he reached back. Well, it was probably Erin, his wife, who reached out back for him. But he was like, bro, I absolutely love the UFC. This is the best day ever that you're reaching out to say that. So we hit it off, kind of started a relationship. He started kind of guiding me on what I needed to do, how to get into it. So obviously from the beginning, I wanted to just finish the first one. And then I ended up signing up for I think it was Challenge at the time. Now it would be like Clash. It was like the Miami race or one of them.
Yeah.
And I was getting close to the race, and I ended up getting called for a short notice fight that I took on 5 days notice, and ended up doing that instead. And I had only been doing triathlon training. I had not done 1 day of MMA training. I took the fight on 5 days notice against a former champion for a 5-round main event fight. Made the weight in 5 days. And I lost a split decision, but I went all 5 rounds competitively with this former champ on only triathlon training.
That's crazy.
And then from then on, I and then I started getting really into it. Did my first race in Blue Ridge, Virginia, which is a really pretty tough course if you know that one. I don't think they've ever done the pros there at all.
No, I think it's pretty rolly out there.
Got a 5-mile climb. It's really hilly. It's like a 4,000 feet gain on the bike course. And it was like 90 degrees that day. I had no idea about sodium in my waters. I probably only had a couple hundred milligrams of salt. Bonked like crazy on the run, was walking part of it, but I was addicted from right then and there. I was like, I'm doing this way better than that the next time that I go. And then the next one I went under 5 hours, and then I was like getting close to 4:30, and then I've gone, and now it's just been, now it's just about trying to win overall age group and qualify for world champs as much as I can.
Rad. That's awesome. And do you kind of get off on the like getting beat down, like you getting like bonking that hard? Was that kind of like, yeah, let's go back and get some more of that?
Yeah, I've always kind of been that guy. Even if you look back at my fighting career, like I was known as that guy that if you're gonna fight me, like, oh crap, like you might beat me, but you're going to know every second of the fight that you're in there with me, and you're going to be bleeding, and you're going to be hurting, and you're going to be busted up, even if you get a win over me. I was known for my durability. I was known for my cardio as a fighter. Obviously different cardio systems for both, but that intrigued me just as much, right? I was always known for being a grinder in mixed martial arts and in the UFC, and tough. A tough SOB is kind of what I was known for. So finding a sport where it's kind of all about mental toughness and who can push that little bit further towards the end, obsessed with it. Obsessed with like long workouts, big bike rides. And then to do the first full, there was a lot of questions. I didn't really know how it was going to go, but I always kind of had a feeling I was really going to like that because it's more about that mental fortitude. It's more about just kind of staying comfortable, you know, and it's not like I'm not ever going to be running, you know, sub 120 half marathon. It's just not genetically in me at this age to be pushing that kind of speed. But for a marathon at 40 years old, these dudes that overbike and then don't have anything left for the run and fall apart. I passed a whole lot of guys on the run in Lake Placid.
Dude, I love that.
That's for
love
sure.
that.
So
yeah,
I'm
it's kind of
obsessed
like
with it. It was only the first one. So.
Yeah, you got more coming for sure. And I think that's you know, you've got the guys that are trying to run under 6 minute pace and they're like doing their thing, right? And then you got kind of the workmen's where it's like, man, it's a pain tolerance contest, and like I'm putting my money on you for the pain tolerance contest, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm always trying to build the pace and build the speed because that's there. The ability to kind of endure pain, kind of push boundaries is not difficult for me, but you know, just kind of making sure that the mechanics are there. I've got a lot of things that are nagging from years of fighting. I've got a really bad hip. I've got really bad shoulders from years of jiu-jitsu and grappling and wrestling, and you know, I've got one leg that's from being left foot forward and right leg back and posture that's just not built for swimming. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to be a fantastic swimmer, and that's okay. And that's why I like the longer stuff too, because if I do an Olympic, even guys my age, if they're decent swimmers, they probably have 6 minutes on me coming out of a short race like that. It's like, oh, I'm screwed. If they can somewhat bike, I'm never going to see them. But in an Ironman, even if you've got 15 minutes on me and you're blown up by the time we get to the run, I'm just going to trot right past you at mile 18 and mile 20. See you later. So,
dude, and that is why we got to get that hashtag Get Felder to Kona going, because Kona, dude, they're going to be dropping like flies in front of you.
I know, dude. I'm still keeping my heart set on going. I've got accommodations. I've got it all set. If I can go, it can all be canceled. But obviously, since I'm on that Everyman Jack team, there's a million guys that are going to. The whole team is basically going to be there. It's ridiculous how fast these guys are.
And dude, I mean, qualifying your first try means you're doing pretty good. I think you got a good chance.
And I had a little luck. I'm going to be honest. I don't want to say I wasn't. I needed some people to not go, and I needed 2 people to not go, and they didn't end up going, and one guy had a slot, so I weaseled my way in there.
That's the deal, man. That's the deal. You got to do it. You telling me how you got into the sport makes me a little concerned, because it makes me think that you might have learned too much from Lionel Sanders and Talbot Cox. But it makes me feel a little bit better that you've got the Everyman Jack team behind you in that community. But like, if you tell
I've got it balanced out,
dude. You know how it is. I love Lionel. I love Talbot, but sometimes it's a little bit. There's some crazy talk going on over there, and we gotta regulate. But you got some.
Bro, that's what I love. I love all that crazy. I love that every video I watch of Lionel, he has got it figured out now. This way, this is the new thing, and I.
And
get
the next time it's the opposite.
Oh, he's on this now. Yeah, so it's like, but you know that's how it was in MMA too, right? It's like guys are always trying to discover something new and working on something, and that's what's so good about just pro athletes, right? There's some of the craziest personalities that you're ever going to meet, and that's why people love him, because he's wild. I mean, he's a wild dude.
Totally. And I mean, some of that too. I'm curious if it's the same in fighting. Like, as you're saying, athletes trying to get something, like learn from everything. Is part of it also though just like mentally giving yourself hope that like it wasn't just that you were off or that you sucked in that fight, that you've got another, like, oh, here's a new like pathway to belief and success.
Yeah, and you got to be careful too, right? The same as what we're talking about, where some days, and like, how do you know if it was just maybe the day wasn't there for you and it wasn't a great day, or fight, for example,
Yeah.
and or was it the training? Was it your coaches? Was it the nutrition? Was it too much sparring? Was it too much? Were you doing too much running? Were you do? It's a fine balance of, do I stick with the program and trust it still, even though I didn't have a good result this one time, but maybe it's going to take more than once. For us, it was, your team that you would go and train with, or your coaches that you go and work with. Just like in triathlon, you trust the system, a new coach, you change everything, or, oh, everybody's doing this grams of carbs now, or this amount of this, or what, at what point do you trust your own instincts versus what's the new wave of, the Norwegians are all doing this kind of stuff. And it's the same for us. Like, oh, the guys down at American Top Team in Florida are doing X, Y, and Z with their training, or all these guys are all now only sparring this much and not sparring much, and they're doing more cognitive kind of reflex testing and stuff, and they're focusing more on recovery. There's only so many things out there. You got to kind of weed through what's BS and what works for you, and the only way to do that, obviously, is to experiment with different stuff. And it was the same in fighting, and but I always kept it pretty bread and butter for me. And obviously, I've been out of the game a little bit now. I'm not sure what all these guys are doing, but I was like a hermit. I was very like Rocky Balboa with my approach. I left my family. I lived in Milwaukee and trained at this one camp, and I probably went too hard. Like, in hindsight, looking at what I've learned now from sports science and being involved in this sport and hearing so many great minds that are studied up on sports nutrition and all these things, we're doing a lot of things wrong. But the MMA is trying to catch up on that. And there's a lot more sports science involved. There's a lot more nutrition involved. And obviously we have to cut weight. We have to make weight for our competition, which is kind of where we're still barbaric in a way, because think about it, we weigh in on Friday morning and we fight on Saturday. So I would weigh 155 pounds on Friday. I do not weigh 155 pounds even now as a triathlete. I still weigh 175 pounds, and I'm significantly lighter now than I was when I was a professional fighter. So I was muscled up as a fighter fighting at 155. So I would cut from like 185, 190.
That's crazy.
All the way down and look like I haven't eaten in, months, cut all the water out of my body, rehydrate up, and then have to fight the next day.
Dude, that is crazy.
So you do this whole camp, this whole preparation, and then you crush yourself the last week. I was eating like the last few days, we would eat like 1,000 calories a day.
Dude, that is so painful. No wonder you got into Lionel Sanders. Oh, dude's running 110 degrees, sweating 15 pounds out every time he runs.
Yeah, but then like nowadays, it's like, oh, you want to go eat a pint of ice cream tonight? Yeah, sure, go ahead. It doesn't matter. You're doing a 5-hour bike ride tomorrow. You can have that and a pizza and some bacon if you want to.
That is the best part of triathlon, for sure.
That's the other thing that I became obsessed with, because like now I'm lean, walking around in shape all year round. I used to have ups and downs with my weight, like bad, because fighters kind of suffer from eating disorders, man, because we have to diet so hard. So even when we're in camp and we're actually eating, and we're we hire nutritionists, and we really try to be getting good fats, good protein, carbohydrates at key times. That's the problem, is we really have to limit how many carbs and when we eat them, because of how much water they can retain over time. So then when fight's over and you win, let's say you win a big fight, well, now it's like, oh man, handcuffs are off. I can eat whatever I want. I remember on Halloween time, if I had just fought, I would sit with bags of like fun-sized candies and eat there'd just be wrappers. Yeah, it's not fun when you have that stomach ache afterwards. You haven't eaten chocolate in 2 months, and now you just ate a mega-sized, you pour a whole thing into a bucket, giving out for trick-or-treaters sized bag of candy to your face.
Dude,
not
that's
good.
brutal. And it's how that is legitimate. Like, as a pro triathlete as well, like I had moments where I felt like I had eating disorder like habits, right? And that's hard to break, especially if it's built into like you being successful, right?
Yeah. Like, how do you, especially when you retire from anything too, right? You spend your whole life as a pro anything, and you have a certain way about you going thing. And then when it's all done too, it's like, that's another can of worms you open. It's like, well, now let's say you're a triathlete. You're used to just, I'm training all the time and eat whatever I want. You're used to that. It's like suddenly if you're not training like that anymore, it's like, well, you can't really eat like that anymore. And the same with fighting. It was like, I had to realize once I stopped fighting, okay, there's no fight on the horizon now. So the binging has to stop, and I have to start learning how to kind of balance things out and live a normal, sustainable lifestyle. Yeah. And obviously the amount of training I'm doing now helps that, but I don't have those, even with the amount of working out that I'm doing, I don't have those crazy benders where I'm like, I'm going to eat everything in sight, because I can eat it whenever I want now. So I tend to not need to eat it as much as I used to want to.
Well, and I might have to ask your family this instead of you, but like with that balance and not getting all this, is like your mood better, you sleeping better, life feeling like more stable besides the Abu Dhabi flights and all that?
Yeah, I mean, the travel is still difficult, but the good thing is now I'm home most of the time, right? I'll have weekend, I'm gone 3, 4, 5 days, back home a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks sometimes, gone for 2 weeks, back for a month. So there's definitely long portions of travel, but if you think about it, towards the end of my fighting career, I was doing commentary between fights and fighting. So I would do those little trips, and then it would be like, okay, well, I booked a fight in whatever month. That's a 2-month, 3-month training camp that I'd book for that, where I'd do 8 weeks of that away. So 8 whole weeks where I wasn't home at all. And there's none of that. And that was 3 times on a good schedule, I would fight 3 times a year. And so that's all those months where I'm not home at all. And then when I am home, I'm starting to work again and go on these small trips. So as much as I have to leave quite frequently, things are, and there's less anxiety like there used to be. I mean, when I would book a fight, and it's heavy on the mind. I mean, it's one of those sports where, I'm not discrediting any other sport, but the only thing that I think really sets us apart is when our event comes, I think there's a guy on the other side of that cage that wants to take my freaking head off. Do you know what I mean? Like everything everything is on the line for him too. You know what I mean? The same feelings I'm feeling of how important this is, how I need this money, how I want to become champion, how I want to be the best. That guy's thinking the same thing. And the only thing standing in his way is me. And you play some sleeping for fighters is tough, because every night you start, what if he knocks me out in front of my family? What if he chokes me out in front of my family? It's tough.
That's gnarly. I will say you're probably going to be the only guest that I have that says they spend more time with their family doing triathlon and better diet.
Well,
more
let me also say this, because if my wife sees this and I'm not honest, she'll be like, hold on, you didn't tell the full story. I mean, listen, I go through all the same things that any other person has to go through that does this sport. Is you were doing what today? Wait, so, like the other day, I just got home not too long ago, and I was like, babe, coach has got me doing a 3-hour ride today, and I just got back like a day before. And now, luckily, a lot of those rides are right in my garage on the trainer, so anybody can come out and sit with me. But let's be honest, does anybody want to sit and watch somebody ride on Zwift for 3 hours at a time? It's like, no, it's okay. You can sweat all over yourself. I'll see you when you're done. So yeah, trust me, there's some arguments on changing the schedule, or well, what are you going to do with us if you're going to go and do that this weekend, or if you're going to go race, then you got to take us to the zoo, go to Hershey Park. So I'm always trying to figure out something to keep everybody happy, but how it is. It doesn't always work.
No, not easy. It certainly doesn't. And you're racing against guys that are dealing with the same thing, right? And I guess I'm curious on what you were saying with when you look across the ring, that guy wants the same thing as you, and you're like, okay, let's do it, and it's a battle. Is there more camaraderie in triathlon? Or are you like, or if there's a dude in front of you, it's like, dude, sorry, bro, it's me or you?
Oh, it's definitely on race day, but it's fun, right? It's very similar in fighting too, though. And I know it seems hard for people that haven't been in the sport to kind of wrap your head around, but you don't feel closer to anybody
Right.
more as much as you do to the guy that you just fought after a fight. Like, I would get done fights, and more often than not, the only person I really wanted to talk to for a while was the guy I just fought, because we just went through something that nobody is going to understand. We are now closer than I am with most friends. You know, like that battle that you just had with somebody for 15, 25 minutes in the trenches with each other like that, in front of a freaking sold out arena. If you're fighting on pay-per-view, you know, like you're bleeding all over the place with each other, you're busted up, like you have your arm around each other, like, dude, what a freaking fight, you know what I mean? And it feels that way in triathlon to a degree too. Like when you're at that finish line and everyone's got ice packs or the silver blankets around each other, drinking Cokes and just talking about whatever hill and this and that, or what happened to you in transition, and oh, I had to hit the porta potty, my stomach was in knots, and it's that same energy that I love about this sport too, because everybody's talking about war stories after the race.
Dude, I love that. That's awesome.
But a fight is
thought,
a different level, man. Different level.
I always assumed you guys would like
when you
is there times where you're like,
when my cuts have bled into your cuts, like that's a connection that you don't get very often.
Dude. Yeah,
we get tested, man. We get tested for all kinds of stuff, so we're good.
Don't sign me up. Don't sign me up for that. I'm don't want to mess up the face, you know.
No, but if you're going to be calling Abu Dhabi for me, we got to get you up to speed.
Get some scars going, dude. I love it. Okay, I got a couple quick questions. Dude, these things are pristine, man. How much work would it take to get those things cauliflower?
We could just
get like a belt sander?
Put like something hard behind it and then hit it with a hammer, and we'll get it right there.
I was barely tough enough to do Ironman. I'm certainly not tough enough to do UFC. I always thought, like, we used to joke around, the pros would be like, hey, there should be like a division, or like after the race there should be like a bar fight or something to see who like the all around toughest guy is. And I'm like, no, man, I'm losing all of it, and you are winning it for sure.
Sign me up. Dude, I'll trot my way through the whole race and save all my energy for the end and be like, oh, you guys finished?
Hilarious. Okay, so I know you're a fan, and you got some friends obviously that are pros, so no pressure, but pressure. Before I let you go, I got to ask who your picks are for Nice, for the World Championship for the women, and for Kona. And Talbot's not racing Kona.
Oh, man.
And who would win that division? Women, who would win the fight after the race division of current pros?
Of the pros as is?
Lionel, obviously.
Just like...
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think he'd be up there because he at least loves the sport. So, but who would be tough? Like, who? I'm trying to think of who might be able to scrap. Like who? I feel like Curry would be. He's New Zealand. I feel like I fought a guy from New Zealand, and he was tough. The guy that I fought
Curry's
from New Zealand, I fought in Auckland. What's that?
Curry's a lover, but I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of who else would be a good fighter. I think Lionel, when push comes to shove, he'd get crazy. Yeah. He'd be a scrapper.
He can deal with pain, that guy.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Even if you were beating him up for 20 minutes, he'd probably find a way to come back.
That's awesome.
I don't know. I don't know about the winners. I can't make any real honest picks off the top of my head. I'd have to sit and look at a list.
No, you're fair. That's fair. No big deal. So we'll have one last question.
Well, I pray to the triathlon gods that Lionel has a good showing this year, man. He's got his slot. I know he wasn't happy with Lake Placid, but it would truly make me a very happy guy to see him go and crush that race again, because I know just the last time he was there, he was beyond disappointed in how things went. So it would be great to see him.
Yeah, man.
Just have a solid.
I think that dude, there's not a lot of people that would be bummed if Lionel won that race. You know, like nobody's rooting against the guy. He puts it all out there, right? Like I'm sure like
Yeah.
there's like you. It sounds like we're a fighter that like, you know, you didn't get to the championship like you wanted. I think you're what, sixth in the world, but like how many best fights of
Yeah.
the nights did you get? Right? Like
A
getting
bunch.
scrappy.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like that's kind of why we had a good connection too, is right. I was like, oh, this guy's got a similar, you know, obviously he's got his own journey and his own story, but it's definitely the underdog story. And I can always relate to that. I've always been a huge fan in any sport of that. I'm always that guy that's like, oh man, that person's kind of counted out. All right, come on.
Totally.
Let's see this guy do well. Never been a front runner. Like I'm from Philly. And the Cowboys as a kid, the Cowboys were always winning everything. And there was kids in Philly that were always big Cowboys fans. And I hated that. Like the Eagles sucked. The Eagles sucked. But root for the Eagles. You can't root for the Cowboys. You're from Philadelphia.
Did they have Yankee fans too?
I hate it from.
Yankees,
What's that?
Cowboys? Were they Yankees fans too?
All of it, man. All of it. There was
the worst.
There was always that when I was a little kid. There was kids that just rooted for the best teams. I'm like, you have a team. Like you're from a city that has teams, has all the teams. You have no excuse to like any other team but your team.
Was that like,
That's just
is
me.
Frodo like the Yankees? Like in this situation, is Frodo the Cowboys and Lionel's the Eagles?
I think in a way, yeah, it kind of is. It's easy to root for Jan. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, Jan's the man, and I'm also
He's great,
like Jan. But if he's going head to head with Lionel, I'm sorry, Jan.
dude.
I'm rooting hard for my boy Lionel. You know what I mean? Like when they did that tri battle, I knew it was slim chances, but I was like, "Come on, bro,
Gotta root.
you can do it." And it was like, "Oh no, that's not."
But he tried hard. He tried really hard.
But you
That's
know what I
what's
mean?
important.
It sold me. I tuned in for the whole damn thing just because I'm like, what if? What if?
The hope.
What if there's a
always
chance?
Hope. There's always hope.
Yeah.
Okay, last question, man, and because I could talk to you all night, you're awesome. And now I just want you to go to Kona so we can have some Mai Tais after the race. But
Man,
okay,
I want to go. I want to go.
you're doing it. It's gonna happen. What hurts more, the day after an Ironman or the day after going 5 rounds?
It's a good question, and I've been asked this before. And let me first say they are different, and they're different levels of hurt. But a 5-round fight, like if it's a fight of the night, action packed fight. Let's just put it this way. This is a good way to answer it. How many days am I in the hospital versus how bad does the race hurt? Because I've spent over a week in the hospital after a fight that wasn't even 5 rounds. So you can imagine the pain. Let me real quick, 2 examples before I don't want to talk your ear off, but I fought in Phoenix years ago, and I was breaking my way into the top 10. I fought this guy, James Vick, 6'4" lightweight, huge guy from Texas. Good battle. Last 30 seconds of the fight, he winds up, and I'm going to throw a punch. He steps in with this big, giant knee, hits me right in the chest, right in the sternum. Fight finishes, I'm fine. I'm starting to have trouble afterwards. I can't seem to catch my breath. And then I'm peeing blood afterwards, and I'm like, okay, I've done that before. This isn't anything. But the doctor who was ringside was following me around. He didn't like what he was seeing. Credit to this doctor to this day. And he's like, hey, man, after this interview, I just want to take you to the hospital real quick. I'm a surgeon there. I'll get you in. I'll get you right out. I want to get a couple scans. If nothing's there, you go have your burger, get out of here. Takes me to the hospital. They do a scan on my kidneys to see if something's wrong because I was urinating a little blood. But it happens from all the body shots. It's normal.
Right.
It's not great, but it's normal. And I'm waiting for the results. He comes in. I'm like, so anything wrong with my kidneys? He's like, no, kidneys look great. Problem is your lung is collapsed. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, you punctured your lung. So it turns out I had a bubble on my lung. So when the knee hit my chest pushed in and popped the bubble on my lung, puncturing my lung. So my lung collapsed. They normally are able to kind of put a pigtail, they call it, in where it sucks the extra air around your lung out and it fixes itself. Well, it wouldn't work. So they had to go in surgically, find the hole, cut that portion of my lung out, and then adhere and rough up the area of my chest walls, push my lung to it so that my lung is now healed to my chest wall, and put a tube through my rib cage into a box that I used to have to carry around, draining all the surgical fluid afterwards.
Dude.
So
this
that's painful.
See, I knew I wasn't tough enough to be a fighter, but dude, that is brutal.
When I fought in New Zealand, I had rhabdo. I had a broken orbital in 2 spots on my face, and I almost had compartment syndrome. Do you know what compartment syndrome is?
Yeah, no, I do. It's painful. I had it in my quad. Not good.
Is it? They had to cut it open?
They were minutes from doing it, but they got it.
Yeah, same here. So I almost had to have my calf cut wide open from that. So, but I can tell you what, my first ever triathlon, I could barely walk for days. After I did my first 70.3, I was in so much pain, so miserable. I remember afterwards, I just laid in a bath of ice with my wife, just talking to me, and I couldn't even celebrate. I couldn't go do anything. So they both absolutely suck. And I feel like the mental drain of an Ironman is more taxing than even a 5-round fight. But physically, if it's a war,
well, man, I pity the guys in front of you the next race if they've listened to this podcast, because it's like, dude walks off a collapsed lung, like, oh no, it's fine. We'll walk it off. No big deal.
I thought I was fine. Thank God that guy made me go to the hospital. I was going to get on a flight the next day, and that could have been a real problem at that elevation with a collapsed lung.
Dude, that's not good. Well, dude, no wonder you're good enough to qualify at Kona, your first one. And I will say, Placid is not, like, hats off to you for doing Placid as your first, because that's a tough course, man. You learn some stuff about yourself out there.
I loved it, man. I feel like those types of courses suit me because it's again about strength and kind of relentlessness as opposed to just pure speed. It's it's fun. This is definitely a grinder course, and it was luckily not very hot. I do not. The problem with Kona too is going to be, Matt. I sweat a ton, and I think it's from all the weight cutting over the years. I lose a lot of electrolytes in my sweat, so Kona's if I go, it's gonna murder me, man.
Yeah. I got some secrets for you. I don't hand them out too often.
I'll take all the tips.
But when you get there, we'll make sure you get all the tips because it's not easy. But if you can convince yourself you're not hot, you're fine.
Yeah. You're good. Is that all it is? Oh man.
That's it, man. Just think of cool breezes. You'll be fine. Dude, cannot thank you enough. Yeah, that's it. Dude, you're awesome. We might need to do this again because I've got like another hour's worth of conversation for you, but I appreciate you taking the time.
Anytime, busy
schedule.
Anytime, dude. I had a blast. Anytime. I love this sport. I really do. And I admire all these athletes. I'm a huge fan of all these guys. I watch all the YouTube channels. I watch all these guys, all you guys calling the races. I'm a fan. I'm listening in. I'm laughing along with commentary while I'm riding my bike half the time. So keep it up.
Awesome. We'll do. And I think I'll probably be watching a few more UFC fights after this.
Yeah, man. So check it out. Get past the blood and guts and just try to start to watch and appreciate how athletic these guys are as well, and how technical it can be. Start talking to Lionel. He'll start breaking things down for you.
Oh, I'm sure. I am sure.
He's learning.
Sweet. Well, dude, thank you so much. Appreciate it. And crossing our fingers for you. Get Felder to Kona. It's happening.
Let's go.
Wow, what a super interesting and fun dude. Loved that chat with Paul. Rad guy and such a different perspective on our sport. I always love being able to chat with folks that have reached a very high level of sport in a different discipline and coming into Ironman racing and training and seeing what kind of those differences are and what they've learned from their past and maybe what they're learning from Ironman back to their original sport. So love chatting with Paul. Appreciate him coming on. We've got a ton of big things coming for the last few months of the season. Coming up next is the Minova Ironman European Championship in Frankfurt, and then 2 back-to-back 70.3 races with Ironman 70.3 European Championship Tallinn and Ironman 70.3 Zell MC Kaprun. All right around the corner with tons of points up for grabs in the Pro Series. And as you know, if you've been paying attention, it's super tight up at the top, and it's really anyone's game and just about a month, a little more than a month out to our VinFast IRONMAN World Championship in Nice. So people trying to get those points settled till those final races. Looking forward to it. It's going to be great. And on the women's side, it's American sweep right now with Jackie Herring, Danielle Lewis, and Alice Alberts all in the podium positions. And actually on the men's side, it's a North American sweep with Matt Hansen, Jackson Laundrie, and Colin Zudge all holding down the top men's spots. And to stay across all the latest Ironman Pro Series news, follow at Ironman Try on Instagram and check out proseries.ironman.com for standings, athlete bios, episodes of A Fighting Chance, replays of the races, and more. And thanks again to our presenting sponsor, Maurten, the official sports performance nutrition partner of the IRONMAN Global Series. And all Ironman athletes have access to Maurten hydrogels and solids on course in 2024. Wouldn't be able to have this podcast without folks over at Maurten. So appreciate it, and great product. So go check it out if you haven't yet. And, you know, they've got them on course, so train with it. You're going to be better off by the end of race day. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast. If you're sitting on the trainer, you can also watch this podcast as a video on our Ironman Triathlon YouTube channel. Well, thank you all for joining us on the IRONMAN Insider podcast presented by Maurten. And be sure to keep an eye on this space for a lot of really good conversations, some pretty big guests coming up soon, and a lot more action coming into the end of this season. I'm Matt Lieto, and thank you so much for tuning in.